was. We're continuing to promote the RSA process. It kind of goes up and down, and I'll share those statistics in a future meeting. But I would say on the average, we receive anywhere from 5 to 10 requests for safety assessments on a weekly basis. So it's a pretty robust program. We've enhanced the safety committees, and we continue to do that. We're going to be introducing those investigative skills to them shortly, as well as improving their ability to recognize hazardous conditions. We conducted the safety study through the efforts of Washington State University. We're continuing to build upon the information learned from that study and make improvements, improving our public safety awareness campaigns. Obviously, we reorganized. And then lastly, we also reviewed our whole auditing process and whether that was really being effective. And I found that we really needed to make some significant improvements in that particular area. So a whole new auditing procedure was established, and that's already been launched. And last year we conducted approximately 4 audits, I believe it is, or 6 audits. So in future briefings, I'll provide you with an update of this safety management system. I have the honor of sitting on a national committee that is promoting this concept through all transit agencies. I'll be also presenting a set of performance measures for you. We've made a number of improvements on the east side in terms of grade crossing pedestrian safety. That'll be more of a show and tell. I'll have pictures that time for you to see. We've made some significant work in that area. We received a grant from the Federal Transit Administration to demonstrate something known as a pedestrian warning system. We are testing 4 different systems, and I'll provide an overview of that. That project is actually going to launch in September. Making improvements in safety training, and then obviously our safety outreach and education. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, whether they're safety or security related.
Questions from the board?
Yeah. With your subcontractors or vendors, do you have a policy at TriMet that these subcontractors must do this, and this?
Yes. So we have for all of our capital projects, there's a set of safety requirements that have been established, and the contractor has to demonstrate to us their ability to meet those standards.
How about on the maintenance side?
That is a program that is actually just launching, and we put together a new program for that, and it's in print. It's going to print. So we've always had something, but it hasn't been real formal, and now we've provided a much more formal program.
With teeth?
Hopefully, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So an example of the teeth is with some of our projects, we've had safety stand-downs because the performance wasn't there. And that was at TriMet's insistence.
Okay. Has it been considered, and I might be stepping across the line, but to bring a member from the field and get that person trained in safety?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
I'm an electrician by trade.
Yes.
They made me the safety person on large construction sites. So when I would go out to the people, the electricians, members, and try to sell the policy of the contractor, of the owner of a project, having that relationship and knowing, having gone through that stuff, say, you don't work in this panel without protection, say, or if you go above so many feet, you got to, get tied off. But this is my experience, that found that it was easier, instead of coming from the top down, I guess would be the term, you
Yes.
come in, somebody from the bottom up, and, you know, they pay for my training and stuff like that. Just an idea.
Well, that's what we're trying to do through the safety committees,
Okay.
is to engage them.
But an actual person,
An actual person, I would have to say no, not an
Okay.
actual person, but it's something to consider.
yeah, thank you.
Good suggestion. I just had one question earlier, maybe you or Shelley could answer this, but I see Bruce Hanson out here taking notes. I know there was discussion of the new buses and the blind spots and the mirrors, and is that work still going on to make
So Harry's paid a lot of attention to that.
Okay.
He's a good guy to respond.
The answer is yes.
Okay.
And so we've engaged the safety committees in that effort. I've personally looked at the buses themselves, and so it's really a very holistic approach. The short answer is yes. We continue to look at that. We continue to evaluate it. It's my personal belief that I think the buses are safe, and but if there's opportunity for improvement, we'll look at those.
I'm pleased to hear that. Good.
Just briefly, first, thank you, Harry. I hope to have you here on a regular basis, giving us a report. When you summarize what's been done so far, the recertification training for the operators and the supervisors, is that something that will be done on a regular basis? How often does that happen? Because obviously we want to keep...
We've made a commitment to do this on an annual basis.
Okay,
And so
annual.
we want to always keep it fresh and bring safety to the forefront. So we will do that annually. And we're going through the recertification process with operators now, or we'll be starting again, rather, in doing that. And we just concluded a program with our supervisors.
Great, good, thank you.
All right.
Thank
I
you.
might just note in it.
Thank you,
in
Harry.
response to Board Member Schweitzer's questions, we've also been doing some peer review of lately about what other agencies are doing, and actually, our annual recertification is, if you will, the top of the heap in terms of the number of hours that are dedicated to that. It's something we continue to look at, and whether or not we need to augment that throughout the year and we do occasionally if there's changes in technology or other things that we need to do special training on. But we did look at the performance of our peers in this area, and we're very much in line with that. I think it's either our peers are either where we are or below. So that's interesting.
Thank you. All right, we're ready to move on then to the Finance and Audit Committee report. Director Schweitzer.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Let's see, we met July 10th, was the last time our group got together. At that time, Neil introduced Bob Nelson, and I think Bob's here somewhere in the audience. He discussed the operational issues that he will be focusing on as he moves forward. Olivia outlined the framework plan for the TriMet FAIR policy, and the committee discussed the objectives for the FAIR policy and how TriMet balances the competing interests around FAIR policy. There was also discussion about Portland Public Schools, the Student Pass program, and TriMet's youth pass pricing. And that FAIR policy will be on the full board's calendar later in the year, and we'll get to that shortly. And then finally, we discussed briefly the strategic finance plan and how we would start to discuss that and bring that to the full board. And Craig and I will talk about that later in today's meeting as well. So that's the update.
Good. Questions for Director Schweitzer? All right, thank you. Let's move on to the Committee on Accessible Transportation. Dr. Bethel?
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning. You have in your packet the June 19 meetings minutes as well as July 17th agenda for the CAT committee. And also in your package today, board members, you did receive the highlights of CAT from our July 17th meeting. Our next meeting will be in September, since we take the month of August off. But however, during the month of August, TriMet will be coordinating a couple of opportunities for the members of the CAT to tour the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail Project. And their greatest concern really has, along with that, is really the Bybee Street Station, which we've talked about being able to get up the hill and that. And I think the solution for that has been that there will be a bus stop on either end to be able to bring people up. But that is one area that they're concerned in. With that, Mr. President, that will conclude what I need to say about CAT for this month. I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Bethel. Any questions from the board? CAT report? Okay. Thank you. Then we'll move on. I guess the Transit Equity Advisory Committee report, as you can see, Director Zaragoza is not here today, so I'm assuming there's no one else that is ready to deliver that report.
I think that's right, and I would believe, actually, we did have a meeting of the committee last week and continues to meet and developing the ground rules and organization to a large extent, as well as being updated on regular issues that are coming before us.
Okay. And per her request and from the board's direction, we'll have this as a regular standing item, so she'll put that on the next agenda, and hopefully she'll be here to give us an update from her perspective. All right, the next update is on the Metropolitan Policy Advisory Committee, MPAC as we lovingly call it.
And their last meeting was July 10th, and that was devoted entirely to a tour of the Blue Heron site at the base of Willamette Falls, which is a new acquisition. A portion of that property is a new acquisition for the region. Through Metro and City of Oregon City. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend that, and I'm really unhappy about that. But other than that, there is no other information at this time.
All right, thank you. I don't see any other questions in from the board on this one. So the last item on the reports is an update on the strategic financial plan. I guess I'd like just to introduce real quickly for the members of the audience and to remind the board, at our retreat in November of last year, I shared some work that one of the board subcommittees was working on, and that was former Director Clark and myself had been working on how to better engage stakeholders and continue to grow public trust. If you remember, that was a major topic of our prior retreat. And I think, as you know, our work focused on gaining a better understanding of TriMet's mission, how we would provide that safe and dependable transit service, how we can actually affirm with our employers and our riders that's actually occurring. We want to identify measures of success, and actually did identify measures of success, and set a framework for decision making and accountability. And at that same time, a couple other board members, Board Member Schweitzer and Prosser, stepped up, and we created another committee which was to really shape a strategic financial plan to help build a framework for ensuring the long-term fiscal stability of TriMet, which is really critical for us to meeting everybody's expectations. So these two concepts, first off, building trust and accountability, first subcommittee, and then your work that you're going to hear about in just a moment, ensuring our financial stability, are really linked and linked closely. And so today, Board Members Schweitzer and Prosser want to share with you their work on the strategic financial plan to date, including some of the policies that need full board discussion and public input, and then kind of their expectation in terms of a timeline for how this will move forward to actually have adoption. So with that intro, first off, I want to say thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to you, Director Schweitzer, to start the discussion.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. As you already mentioned, a critical component of our strategic finance plan is accountability, is the financial stability. We stated as a board that part of the fiscal year 13 budget is the commitment to create this strategic finance plan. And we believe that this finance plan is TriMet's roadmap to fiscal stability. This plan will establish policies and guidelines for making short and long-term financial decisions, and it will enhance a decision-making process that we hope is transparent and responsive. So with that, Craig and I, or Board Member Prosser and I have been meeting over the last couple of months, at least, to start putting these elements in place, and want to introduce that to the board today.
The strategic finance plan, I think, is really kind of a multifaceted effort. It's a key portion of that is a 5-year financial forecast, which TriMet has been doing. That will be a part of the plan on an ongoing basis. But it also needs to focus on key policy questions, and through this strategic finance plan, basically set some guidelines through the adoption of policies by the board. To put all this together, it's really important that we have a public discussion, not just a board discussion. And that's why we're making this presentation today, to really kind of introduce the topic and to kick off that community discussion. We have a timeline, and I'll go over that in a little bit, which will show the opportunities for public discussion there. We hope to have this before the board for its final approval in November. So we're kind of in an intense work period here to move this forward. So the plan first needs to start with understanding regional expectations, because we are part of the region here, and we're a key part of the region in terms of its livability and its financial health, economic health. So at the August board meeting, the board will be getting an update on Metro's Climate Smart Communities effort. Now, this is something we've actually had a little bit of a briefing at a prior briefing session, but in August we'll have representatives here who will talk about climate smart communities. Climate Smart Communities is the response of the Portland metropolitan area, led by Metro, to put together a plan required by the Oregon State Legislature of all communities on how to reduce our carbon footprint. And Metro is looking at 3 different scenarios on that, and each one of those scenarios relies very heavily on transit. So in August, the board will be hearing more from staff on that.
So we'll hear about the regional growth at the next meeting, but before we grow service, we need to think about the service that's been lost and how do we restore that. Also, one of the board's biggest challenges is we will continue to face many unknowns, and we'll start to talk about what those are today, and hopefully get some input as we move forward. So with our economy slowly recovering and unknown outcomes still on the labor front, our biggest challenge remains our cost structure. So the strategic financial plan is timely as we move forward on other major decisions. And at the last meeting, for example, we heard about the costs involved with the transfer policy and what it would take to restore service. So that's an example of what we'll be talking about today. But all of these decisions require resources and interrelated. So I think that's a big message we want to get out to you today. If we do one thing, it affects something else. So the impacts are something we will need to look at as we look at each of these issues.
We, as Tiffany indicated, we believe that the decisions that are before the board and the policies that we need to look at are best addressed in the context of the big picture. I can say in my experience in local government, financial management, and city management, I can guarantee you the time when you see organizations getting into trouble is when they start looking at issues independently, in the short time frame, in immediate needs. None of what we do is just a one-time kind of thing. We exist in a larger context. We need to be able to provide service over a longer time, and so that's why this financial plan is important. Some of the elements of the financial plan are already in place. We've got already adopted a contingency ending fund balance policy and debt policies. There'll be more that needs to happen. One of the things that we've been doing is our subcommittee, which is Tiffany and myself, aided with Dave Uxier and Sandy Vinci, have been identifying questions that we think that the board needs to discuss and answer. And we have distributed to the board, and I understand that this has been made available to members of the audience if they want it. And I also understand that we will be posting this information on our website. But just to give you some examples of what some of these are, with the payroll tax, one of the questions, should payroll tax growth resulting from employment growth be dedicated to restoring and expanding service? You know, we don't have a dedicated fund for that now. With passenger fares, should revenue gained from increased ridership be dedicated to restoring and expanding service? With operating costs, to ensure the cost of maintaining an existing service does not reduce TriMet's ability to restore and expand service, should TriMet establish a policy objective of holding its cost per revenue hour growth to no more than the growth in regional inflation? These are things that we can discuss. Reserve funds, looking at that, we have fund balance policy, but we might want to look at creating, what I've in my career have always discussed as a counter-cyclical fund, so that we can maintain service over downturns in the economy and our revenue flows. And then with pension funding and OPEB, should we set target dates for fully funding those? So these are some things that we'd like to put before the board for further discussion. We'd also like to solicit further questions from the board, and as we go through the public involvement process, we would like to hear from members of our community if they have things that they think that we should be addressing as part of this policy. We've also put together a timeline, and again, we've provided the board, and I understand that this is available to members of the audience, and it will be posted on the website. There's a lot that TriMet's working on right now, and as I say, everything is kind of interrelated. So we tried to capture some of the big items. So down the left side, we have strategic financial plan, fair policy guideline, transfer policy, employee compensation, service restoration, the Secretary of State's audit, and then also the fiscal year 15 budget. We've tried to lay out across this document kind of, certainly for the strategic financial plan, major work elements and attach that to the calendar. The other items, we haven't really worked at laying that out. They're there to remind us that those things are going on, things that the board will need to be involved in, or that will require significant staff support time, so we need to be aware of. So on this timeline today, to discuss these issues in the timeline on August 14th to get the Climate Smart Communities presentation. On our September 11th board briefing to really make that more of a work session where the board can discuss and get some of these ideas and go into a little more depth in these policy issues and maybe request more information from staff. September 25th and October 23rd business meetings. We would like to have some specific amount of time set aside on our business meeting agenda to hear from the public, for the community groups, interested parties, to get feedback on these questions that we have now and that we will be developing. August 9th, we can do an additional work session. We'll be having our next board retreat in October, so we can also discuss that then, with the idea then that we will have on November 13th at the briefing kind of a final draft for discussion by the board and bringing that to the board at the November 27th business meeting. So this is the timeline that we're seeing. And if anybody in the audience doesn't have a copy and wants one, please contact either Dave Uxie or Sandy Vinci.
I think to start, though, just these questions are good ones for both the public as well as the board. First, a summary of what the item is and reminding everybody of the dollar amounts or the percentages, and then just asking a question to get us thinking a little bit more. The timeline's really important as we lay out the rest of the year and what's coming up early next year. But as Craig mentioned, if you look at the left-hand side of this timeline, you can see what other issues will be coming before the board and what we need to think of in conjunction with these questions. Some of the other big items, fair policy, transfer policy, things we've already been talking about. And of course, most important is our service restoration and how we can do all of that, but keeping all these other things in mind. So we feel this is important. We've really wanted to dedicate time at each board briefing or meeting to get feedback from all parties. So we're starting that today.
Wonderful, wonderful. I bet you there might be some comments or thoughts here. Right. Sending down this end.
I'm set. Going to my friends.
No,
Well, I'm sure you have one or two.
Director
Director
I do.
Stovall, I know you have some comments.
Of course, there are some comments. You know, as I look at the questions, I think the questions are the perfect questions that we need to be dealing with. So I applaud both of your guys' efforts and anybody else that worked on this to get us this information. It's so succinct and so, I think, so provocative in regards to how do we start to address the issues that are in front of us. You know, this is more of a comment than a question, just because every time I came up with a question, I just looked at the document and, you know, the answer or the question was there to answer my question. So I'm confident that as we step through this process, based on these questions and based on these highlighted items, we'll get to where we need to get with a plan that gets us to the overall goal of sustainable system that serves all the needs of all of our stakeholders, riders, employers, all of the folks that really have an interest in seeing this succeed by answering these questions. Now, I just wish the answers were actually as easy to review as the questions. I know they're not. We're going to struggle with a lot of competing items that folks will want and competing interests. But again, I applaud your guys' efforts in putting this together, because this is, I think, very succinct but also very comprehensive. And I just look forward to seeing how we step through some of these difficult competing concepts with operations and service, but then also looking at our long-term obligations, which again are highlighted down in number 4 and number 5. Those are some tough questions to deal with and look at, but essentially we have to have those discussions and conversations, and we have to have those discussions and conversations with the public, with our riders, also, with our team members, our operators, and the ATU, to ensure that we have this comprehensive discussion to get to the ultimate answer of long-term sustainability. So again, thank you.
I guess my comment would be thanks. This is a lot of work, and I've been involved in the Finance and Audit Committee, so I know how much time you and the staff have spent on this. This is very simple pieces of paper that explain it, but there's a lot of information and work that's gone on in the background. I just state that for the record, that the schedule is aggressive, but I think it's doable. I think if we work at this, we can meet this schedule. And I think what's really great about it is it does get us teed up for the next retreat, and it gets us really teed up then for the next budget discussion in terms of where we want the budget to be. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to roll up our sleeves and get right into the financial data, and we're counting on you two and the staff to help us answer the questions that are there now. And I suspect the board, our input sessions with the public will reveal other questions and issues that we'll want to address all along. But I think this is just a wonderful piece of work, and I think it'll set the stage for us both for the short and long term. So I guess I want to thank you guys for this. Look forward to the briefing and the discussion, starting with the Climate Smart Communities presentation and kind of the expectations, because I think people forget how aggressive the goals and objectives are for transit for this region to maintain our livability, our quality of life, and the air quality for the region. So again, thanks.
If I can say one more thing, I don't want anybody to walk out of here with the impression that, okay, come November 27th, we adopt the plan and we're done.
Yeah.
Because we're not. This plan if we put this together and it ends up as something sitting on the shelf, we will have failed, hugely. What I really see, this has to be a living document, and so we're going to be coming back to this every year. Before we get into the budget process. And certainly, we'll be updating the financial forecast, that has to be done every year. But we will come back, we'll tweak as necessary, we'll make changes. There's going to be bumps in the road, there's going to be hiccups, we know that. But if we turn this into a living document, then I think it will really help us as we move toward the future in providing the kind of service that our customers want and deserve, and that our region needs. So, I'm really feeling very optimistic and hopeful about this effort. So.
All righty. Anything else? Thank you again. Really appreciate this work today. It's been just a wonderful primer for us to, as I said, to roll up our sleeves. All right. With that, then, we're going to move on to the business portion of our agenda. The first item is the consent agenda. And for everybody's information, the items appearing on the consent agenda are routine and may be approved by the board in a single motion. However, any board member may remove an item from the consent portion of the agenda for discussion or questions by requesting such action prior to consideration of this portion of the agenda. So right now we have, I believe, 5 items. We have a resolution, which is just a normal recognition that we have an ordinance coming up that we're going to read by title only later in the agenda. Approval of the board minute meetings. Resolution 1307-46, which is authorizing the contracts with Corex LLC for purchase of reclaimed Voith, is that correct?
Voith, yep.
Voith transmission repair parts. Resolution 13-07-47, authorizing the contract with Gillig LLC for the purchase of new Voith transmission repair parts. And finally, Resolution 13-07-48, which is authorizing a contract with Siemens Industries for purchase of EHU overhaul kits and caliper overhaul kits. So first off, is there any items on the consent agenda that any of the board members would like removed? Has questions about? All right, with that then, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved, Mr. President.
I hear a motion.
Second?
I hear a second. Is there any further discussion? Then all in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. We have one resolution on our agenda today, which is Resolution 13-07-49, authorizing a contract modification with CH2M Hill for electronic fare collection implementation technical services. Mr. General Manager, do you have a staff report?
Mr. Board President, members of the board, we did spend quite a bit of time at your briefing 2 weeks ago reviewing the electronic fare system, the current status of it, the direction that we want to head with that electronic fare system. And we briefly touched on these this contract modification at the same time. Just note that we did, through an RFP process, select CH2M Hill through a competitive process for a 2-phase procurement. We authorized the work for the first phase in fiscal year 2013. That first phase is essentially complete. It included description, concept of the system, cost estimates, operating system outline of agreements necessary, procurement plan, and procurement documents. So all of that has been essentially completed with the first phase of work. Based on the original RFP response from CH2M Hill, there is a second phase of work that was proposed at that time that we would now like your approval to move ahead with. This would really be the second phase of work associated with the procurement of the system and followed up by the implementation of the system. And again, this is including a fairly long and lengthy test and pilot phase. As you know, as we discussed at your briefing 2 weeks ago, this is a large procurement all in all for TriMet. It's a big investment, a big effect on our customers. I think it will be a very positive effect when it's done. But overall, this is about a $30 million investment when you begin to add up all the pieces over a long period of time. And those costs have been included in all of our financial forecasts as we look forward. Again, we think, and this is our goal with this, is that we actually can reduce leakage in the current system enough that we can actually pay for that additional capital cost. Again, on the 26th of September last year, the board approved this basic contract. And again, what we would like to do at this point in time is move ahead with that second phase where CH2M Hill will provide us the technical services to assist us as we move through the procurement and implementation phases. The total scope for phase 2 totals to about $2,337,524. I might note that's essentially the same number that CH2M Hill proposed with the original proposal, with the exception of about $78,000 of services that TriMet has requested to be added. And those are related to creating fare gates for some of our stations along the Portland-Milwaukee project. Again, we see that as important prototype work that we can implement along with the Portland-Milwaukee project that might be available then to use elsewhere in the system if that proves to be effective. So I would just note that CH2M Hill has been a very effective contractor for us, has stayed right on schedule. We are right where we wanted to be with what is frankly for many public transit agents a pretty rapid implementation of a new fare system. So we're very encouraged by the services so far. I'd also note that related DBE participation, phase 1 was about 5% and has targeted not less than 11% DBE participation for phase 2 services. So again, these various procurements associated with this fare system will continue to come back to the board over a period of time. But this is for that umbrella technical services necessary to assist us as we go through the rest of this process. And so with that, I would recommend your approval. We have technical staff here as well who are able to answer your questions, should you have any.
We have questions from the board? Yes.
I just want to clarify one point. The $2,337,000 was the original estimate for phase 2. Right. The $78,000 you mentioned is in addition to that.
That's correct.
And so the total amount that we'd be acting on today is $2,416,000.
That's my understanding.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I had that
Apologize
straight.
if I didn't make that clear.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I wasn't here at this seat. Yeah, I wasn't alive. Can you very quickly share with me the reason?
The reason for the electronic fare system? Yeah. Fundamentally, we believe that the current system is complicated and is an impediment to people using the system. Number one. Number two is that we need to change our technology along with the rest of the world, which is becoming much more electronic based in terms of the way fares are paid. Our objective here is to have a very simple system. In one of our earlier presentations, and we'll be happy to walk back through some of these, we demonstrate that we're really jumping from about technology that was created probably originally in 1910 over a whole series of other transit technologies like MEG, Stripes, and the current pure smart card systems to where we're going right now, which is frankly a much more efficient system. We also think there's a lot of leakage with our current system just in terms of the inefficiency of the use of it. So we think financially it's also a good move for us. And again, we can certainly elaborate on that, but I hope that's the short answer.
That's the short answer. Thank you.
Thank you. And for members of the audience, you want to tell them what a fare gate is?
Yes, so a fare gate is essentially a device that will have a turnstile, essentially, or a turnstile-style device that will control access to a MAX platform. This is what we call a hard system. New York City Transit, for example, the subway is like that. The WMATA system, Washington, D.C. is like that. We do not have the capability of doing that everywhere, but it may be in certain platforms where, for example, is grade separation. It may be a very an important way to enhance security so that we make sure the people who are on that platform are have a valid fare and a valid reason for being there. And that's, I think, the notion that we really have related to this. And this will be a bit of an experiment, and we'd love to try it and begin to see if it has application elsewhere in the system.
Good. Any other questions? Okay, do I have then a motion to approve Resolution 13-07-49?
I'll make the motion.
Here, a motion?
Second.
I'll let you, Kelly, figure out who gave us the second there on that one. Is there any further discussion or questions on this one?
I'll just make a
Yes.
quick comment in regards to, in the world that I play in with startups, we always say an idea is worth $100, the plan to implement it's worth $1 million. And, I just want to comment on, we look at this and the cost is $2.4 million, but essentially, the implementation of this fare system, electronic fare system, is going to be so critical to its overall success. And we've already gone through a lot of iterations of looking at this information and I feel very comfortable moving forward. And we looked at the qualifications for C2M Hill on this project and feel very comfortable and confident that they can do a phenomenal job in the implementation. And so, that's why I'm fully supportive of making sure we do this and we do it right.
Good comment. All right, with that then, I'm going to ask for the vote on the the motion to approve Resolution 13-07-49. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion does pass unanimously. Okay, the last item on our business meeting today is an ordinance, and correct me if I'm wrong, General Counsel, we're going to have the first and second reading of this ordinance today because we have an emergency clause on this ordinance.
There's only one reading. But
There's
yes.
only one reading, thank you, okay. One reading.
I won't read it twice.
Won't read it twice. No, actually, I want you to read it twice. No.
I know I want to read it twice.
But the intent is, we'll when we're done, we'll have a roll call vote, and that the ordinance will become effective immediately upon its passage. So with that, General Counsel.
Thank you. So ordinance number 330 of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, TriMet, amending TriMet Code Chapter 29, regulations governing proof of fare payment and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Is there a staff report on this item also?
There is, and I'd love to provide just a few comments.
Thank
I would say that the long and short of this ordinance is to bring our code in compliance with the digital age that we live in. So what TriMet Code Chapter 29 establishes that proof of fare payment regulations for the enforcement of our fare system throughout the system, and those are the codes that our fare enforcers and the police actually use to make sure that our system is enforced. Today's ordinance incorporates proof of fare payment provisions through the use of mobile tickets purchased through TriMet's new mobile ticketing application. The emergency ordinance reflects a tight timeline because we would like to introduce and roll out this mobile ticketing application later in August. To use the mobile ticketing application, users would download the free mobile ticketing application for smartphones and then enter a credit or debit card, and then users may purchase tickets and then demonstrate them on our system. But to use the mobile ticket, the user will have to tap on their phone to activate the fare and show the image on their phone as proof of fare payment. And just like other TriMet tickets and passes, the mobile ticket displays what we call a expiration time and date, and what we call the day code, which is a unique code that is generated every day. And there are additional security features in this application. So, for example, digital animation that prevents just copying a copy of the screen to another phone. So the screen actually moves. And there's interactive features to prevent replicating a ticket by recording the animation, so you can change the animation over time. There's a flashing expiration date, and there's also a barcode that can be scanned by the fare inspector to make sure that it's a valid ticket. So Ordinance 330 amends TriMet Code's proof of fare payment provisions to require mobile ticket users to exhibit proof of fare payment by showing the digital fare on their phone. Second, by activating the security features of the mobile ticketing application on the phone, should they be asked to do that by the fare inspector, and to permit fare security barcode scanning of their phone by authorized personnel. Just to note, we're making final tweaks to the mobile app. It has gone successfully through its testing phase with a whole series of test subjects. But in order to have the TriMet code up to date with this new fare mechanism, we're asking for the ordinance to declare, for the board to declare an emergency so that this will actually take effect upon adoption. Mr. President, that concludes my remarks. If I were faster on my smartphone, I'd be demonstrating this as I go along, but unfortunately, I'm not under 30.
We knew that. Didn't know that was the cutoff, though, for using a smartphone. Yes, questions?
Neil, when you did the testing, did you have groups to test with?
Yes, we did.
So somebody like myself who's way over 30 can feel at ease with technology.
Yes, and a number of us were part of that, including this way over 30 gentleman. And actually, this is, now that I've got it up and going, this is the application as it's sort of known. And the security feature we're beginning to note is you see how the picture changes over time. And if you want, we can actually then demonstrate a barcode as well. So it was a broad group of users, but frankly, we'd expect the strongest adoption with people who live by their smartphones, and I think it'll be a great addition to our fleet, if you will, of fare mechanisms.
Thank you.
Good. I'm looking forward to the report on how this is working out and working for both the users and the agency when it's adopted. So, other questions? With that, then, is there a motion to approve? Oh, wait a minute. First off, I should say I have nobody that's signed up to testify on this item. Should I open a public hearing and close a public hearing?
Yes.
Why don't we do that? So I don't have a gavel, but I'm gonna open a public hearing on ordinance number 330. And is there anybody here in the audience who wishes to testify on this ordinance? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and then what I would do is entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 330.
So move.
Second.
I have a second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? We're going to get to that. We haven't gotten to that yet. So is there any other questions, comments? All right. General Counsel Torn, do you want to do the roll call vote?
Thank you. Board Member Bethel?
Aye.
Board Member Esmond?
Aye.
Board Member Stovall?
Aye.
Board President Warner?
Aye.
Board Member Schweitzer?
Aye.
And Board Member Prosser?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. All right, so that concludes our business meeting. Is there any other business to come before the board from the board? Seeing then, I'm going to adjourn the regular business meeting of the TriMet Board of Directors for Wednesday, July 24th, 2013. And I do have about 10 people who have signed up for the public forum. Would the board like a 5-minute break?
The board would.
Okay.
Especially the seniors member.
Thank you very much. All right.
I still miss the tokens.